It is snowing at the University of Delaware, so welcome back to a snow vlog. I don't think in my home back on Long Island that it's snowing. There is a reason for this. We are more inland and we have had colder nights. Also, the moisture is primarily more south. So I think the forecast for Newark, Delaware is about half an inch of snow when this is all said and done. It's nothing to scoff at. Half an inch of snow is a lot, especially for the first snow of the year. But it's like parts of, the mid-Atlantic for the south and west are getting more, but north and east is getting less until you get to, New England. The mid-Atlantic snow hole looks like it's going to live, mainly because you need a storm in the exact right coordinates that we haven't been getting for years. 2023, 2024, of the 5 major East Coast cities, New York City got the least amount of snow, 7.5 inches. DC was about 7.9 inches of snow. Boston was 9.7, which actually meant that for Boston, 9.7 inches of snow feels like less than 7.5 does in New York. DC, I think, was also around that 9-inch range. I think Baltimore got around 11. So while everyone was below average that went to Northeast, except if you were in Allentown, Pennsylvania, it really hit the city hardest. Granted, the city also had the least amount of snow compared to the other boroughs of New York City. There was more snow in the other boroughs by a lot. So parts of the city actually got around a foot of snow. Kennedy Airport having their 19th snowiest February kind of did some of that. So in the midst of a snow drought, we're still seeing Kennedy Airport have a snowy February back in 2024. No part of New York City will have above average more than 2025, but they'd at least be closer and more competitive. New York got about 13 inches of snow in the city, which this time it was more universal, about 13 to 15 inches of snow. It's about 12 to 15 inches of snow across the city. Baltimore also got 13 inches of snow. DC, I think, got 15, which was actually above average for them. So for, that area, the snow drought was kind of over. Philly was stuck at only 8 inches of snow. Not sure how much Boston got, but it was a bit of a weird winter. The thing is, 2022, 2023, we saw less than an inch of snow on this corridor. Then you get to New York City, they only get about 2 inches of snow for the winter. And then you get to Boston, and they get about a foot, which is still well below average for them. We've been having a snow drought primarily because in 2022 and 23 and 2023, 24, the air just hasn't really been cold enough for snow. When it does snow, the snow is at 4-to-1 ratios of snow. So think half an inch of moisture would only get you 2 inches of snow. That kind of deal. It sucks. So you've been having that going on because of how warm the temperatures have been when it does snow. And a lot of times the moisture just comes in as plain rain. In 2024, 2025 certainly had the temperatures to support snow. However, the moisture just wasn't there for most of the winter. December was a wet month, but much of December's wetness came from came from warm storms, and December did get snow, don't get me wrong, but it was a below average amount of snow is what I'm trying to say. Because of the same issues I mentioned earlier, generally about 2 to 3 inches of snow fell in the city in December, which is less than the average 5 inches. January only had about 3 to 4 inches of snow across the city, which is way below the average of 10 inches, despite being the second coldest January since 2015 in the city. Reason why is just because the amount of precipitation that fell across the city, barely more than half an inch of precip. We actually got, decent ratios, but you just can't have snow without the precipitation. And in February, we actually got about 7 inches of snow across the city. It was close, but we had a below average amount of precipitation too, mainly because after we had this big storm on February 16th, so parts of the city that got flooded out on the 16th had above average precipitation, but I digress. After the floods on February 16th, we only got precipitation, once more on the 20th. That did come as snow, but very light, until the 27th, when we got a bit of precip. But by that point, it was in the 50s. And March just never got cold enough to snow, seeing as the one time we did have an Arctic outbreak, it was totally dry. And besides that, it didn't really drop below the freezing point again. And I think 2025, 2026 is going to continue more of the same. But I will say, being in a suburban area, it is easy to get snow. Although, this is not one of those events where it's like, it's 30 in the suburbs, 33 in the city. So obviously the suburbs are going to have a lot easier time having snow stick than the city. This is not one of those scenarios. And yes, it can snow and it's slightly above freezing, just so that you know. As a matter of fact, the biggest snowstorm that New York City got in the past 3 winters was when about 3 inches fell on February 13th. And the coldest it got in New York City that day was 33 degrees Fahrenheit. Just so you know, I'm not, I'm telling the truth. But it can genuinely snow in those conditions. But anyway, right now it's actually like in Newark, Delaware, it's 24 degrees. It is cold today. And we have a bit of moisture. It's just that the moisture is coming in a bit tangential. I'm telling you, if it wasn't this cold outside, the snow would not be sticking at all. If this is a marginal event, it would not be sticking at all. But it was below freezing since late Thursday night, which is allowing the snow to stay. The high temperature today is forecast to be about 32, so we could have our first sub-freezing high here at the University of Delaware. I don't have gloves, so my hands are freezing. It is very cold around here, and pull out my watch. It's gonna snow until like the early afternoon, I think. Right now it is 8:48 a.m. I don't know if you could see that, but it's 8:48 a.m. I woke up at an hour and a half ago for no reason at all. Just, I think the snow woke me up, but it's fine. I got a healthy amount of sleep anyway. Might do a YouTube video on that when I get back home, obviously. But it's just that the cold air is allowing the snow to stick immediately. That's why it's like starting to graze the roads and the sidewalks more so than the grass, which is weird because usually you expect it to be the other way around in a marginal event, but this isn't really a marginal event. I do miss snow though.